Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello. Hey, so it's just a fire and the firefighters are out here. Michael went a little bit closer, but I guess like a law office was set on fire potentially. Can you hear me okay? I don't really know how to control that. Sound better here? I'm just talking with the little mic in the camera. I mean, in the car. What do you guys want me to do? Wait, hey, wait. Do you want me to actually like? Do you want me to? Wait. Okay. Do you want me to like go in front of the camera?
Should I do it?
Yeah.
Hey, can I have your call in?
What color?
Like, I need to hear the, or I'll call, and then
434, or no, just call down.
yeah, I'll dial it on my own. Okay, I got it. Hey, Kaylee, yeah, I do. How do I change the camera?
Okay, so basically, you
Yeah, I can hear you.
press. So right now you're on camera 6, right here. You press the number that you need and press cut. So if you want to show the stuff outside, press 5 and then cut. That's outside.
Now I got my situation here. Mic check 10-9-8-7-6-5-4-3-2-1.
Fox 10 News, we're continuing coverage online and on our social media as well as our app. And right now we are at the scene of a fire on Esplanade Avenue. That's right between Dauphin and Imogene, right behind the Springdale Boulevard there where the Lowe's and the Walmart is. Our Michael Warwick has been on the scene there. Michael, bring us up to date on what's going on there. Okay, we're having...
Hi, this is Michael Warwick with Fox 10 News. We are following another breaking incident. This one is a commercial building fire. So a business that's caught on fire. I'm going to cut to what we're looking at right here. This is on Esplanade Avenue. The fire itself is down the street, though. This is as far as police were letting us go here a minute ago. At a small attorney's office that's going to be down there. You see the flashing lights and on your left. We spoke to homeowners who were speculating a little bit about the cause of the fire. We'll get into that in a second, but when I walk down the street here, this is Esplanade Avenue. Firefighters were just cleaning up. So when we got there 15 minutes or so ago, the building was not ablaze, But firefighters were in and out, putting out some hot spots and making sure they were safe from some smoke that was inside of that small attorney's office. And we spoke to the next door neighbors of that small attorney's office who said, well, they have seen a large group of people who have been kind of going up and down the street chanting and playing loud music. This is their words as they explained this to me. They were kind of on the spot when the fire first started and said they saw a small hole in one of the windows, according to these next door neighbors. And this is kind of in the backyard of a Walmart that's had some problems tonight, and MPD has locked down that parking lot altogether. You can't even enter the parking lot of that Walmart. So this is the scene again on Esplanade Avenue. Esplanade Avenue, a fire at a business. What we're telling you is, according to those homeowners, so just speculation to this point as of the cause of this fire, but we do know based on seeing all the firefighters out here, and I was down there at the building, that the building was in fact pretty significantly damaged, and firefighters were cleaning that up. So that's the latest information. We're trying to get some more details from firefighters, but all of the first responders are just kind of back and forth from different types of scenes. It seemed like we were up and down Airport Boulevard all night following, different types of incidents and possible incidents and the protests. So this was one that was been a little bit different from what we've been seeing. There weren't any people out here. It's just homeowners who had stepped outside to see what was going on, to look at this, because if you go down there, it's kind of like a little strip of 4 or 5 buildings that are kind of in the backyard of the Walmart, and that's where the fire had started, in that attorney's office. So that's the latest we have. We'll wrap up here. It is 11:43 as we've been tracking different types of events all the way from early this morning, and continuing to track what first responders are tracking. So this has just been the latest incident. I'm Michael Work with Fox 10 News. Stay with us on air and online for the latest as we keep you updated through the night.
All right, Michael Warwick reporting live there from Esplanade Avenue, that's between Imogene and Dauphin Street. And as he mentioned, that's not very far from the Walmart parking lot, and that Walmart off the I-65 service road near the Dauphin Street exchange there was the scene of some activity earlier tonight. That parking lot has been shut down by MPD. So this, we're not even sure if this is even related to anything that has happened during the day today. As Michael reported, some neighbors claim that there were people walking up and down the street chanting, and that this attorney's office in this neighborhood, which was residential for many, many years, and now has transitioned to some residential as well as some commercial. And this is an attorney's office that is in that neighborhood there. And apparently a fire broke out in this attorney's office, but obviously no fire investigators, to my knowledge, are there on the scene right now, but they probably will be at some point in the next hour or so, just to figure out exactly how this fire started. But we're not going to get into the speculation. However, neighbors were saying that they saw people walking up and down the street chanting, and then this fire broke out. So if there's a connection, probably won't know until we get a full explanation from fire investigators. All right, take you back early this afternoon, just about 4 o'clock, a little after 4 o'clock. What you're seeing on the right side of the screen there is what happened there on Water Street, the on-ramp to I-10 westbound. Police forming a line there. At one point, protesters had moved from Mardi Gras Park into Cathedral Square. We were all thinking they were going to stay there until the silent vigil started at 5 o'clock there in Cathedral Square. And then for some unknown reason, the crowd began to move across Dauphin Street, down Jackson Street. One of the most vivid pictures that I saw during the day was Chief Lawrence Batiste standing in the middle of the street, holding his arms up and telling people to go back. They surged past him. They ignored the mounted police that at points along Jackson Street would stop and turn their mounts sideways. The people just continued to stream around the mounted police, then on to St. Michael Street, I believe, or St. Louis Street, and then continued on to Water Street. And before you know it, people had fanned out over all lanes of Water Street. And then at one point, MPD raced ahead, created barriers with squad cars there on the onbound ramp of westbound I-10 and then formed a line in front of the protesters, and there was a very tense standoff. Protesters very, very upset, yelling at the police officers not responding any way that we could hear. Michael Warwick, as a matter of fact, was there on the scene with Randy Lowe, our chief photographer. And at one point, according to Safety Director James Barber, police were concerned that the protesters might break through the ranks of those officers and up onto I-10. And so that's when police, after several warnings, deployed tear gas into the crowd, and that effectively dispersed a lot of people in that crowd. So what you're seeing is the minutes prior to that incident that happened there on Water Street, the on-ramp to I-10 westbound. There you see the tear gas being deployed there by Mobile police at that time. From what we understand, there were no serious injuries in this particular incident. We do know that a window on a police cruiser was broken out at some point, but the tensions were very high at this point. Eventually, people among the crowd of protesters were able to start moving people back. Public Safety Director James Barber had dialogue with several people, working with them, talking with them, trying to understand what they were trying to say, as many people protesting the death of George Floyd, as well as other people at the hands of police officers around the country, in different cities around the country, Atlanta, Minneapolis, places like that. But eventually that dialogue led to the people leaving the on-ramp and then eventually going back to Mardi Gras Park. And then you saw some extraordinary scenes there on Fox 10 News with the police chief of Mobile, Lawrence Batiste, actually engaging small groups and talking with them and listening to them while explaining various aspects of the law, and wanting to continue that dialogue at some point. As somebody said during the day today, and I can't remember who it was, it's not about today so much as it's about tomorrow. What is going to happen tomorrow? After all this dialogue, what is going to happen? You know, how is the city of Mobile going to respond? Mayor Stimson's been on our air extensively today, talking about how he definitely wants to talk with these people. He said, now, I'm not going to talk to 200 people at a time, but he said, I definitely want to talk to small groups and let them know the city of Mobile cares. The city of Mobile wants to hear what they have to say. The city of Mobile understands their anger and frustration. But he and Chief Batiste both said that they would not tolerate any sort of violence or any sort of law breaking that we have seen in other parts of the country. Then following that downtown, apparently some of the protesters came west down Airport Boulevard, standing there in a grassy area right off the off-ramp of I-65 and Airport Boulevard, the off-ramp, the westbound off-ramp. And things appeared to be okay. This was around 6 o'clock tonight. And then later in the evening, according to Chief Batiste, Mobile police tried to pull over a man that was driving recklessly in front of the protesters that were now in larger numbers in a parking lot right there off of that off-ramp, that westbound off-ramp. And they wanted to pull him over for reckless driving. He refused to get out of the car. According to Chief Batiste, he was physically taken from the car, he was handcuffed, and he was taken away. This apparently, as we're taking a look at scenes now from what happened during that time, this apparently triggered some people in the crowd to start throwing water bottles at police that were lined up in the median, the grassy median you see right there, away from that off-ramp. And at that point, police responded with pepper balls, which are not like tear gas, but can certainly incapacitate someone. Our Tyler Finger was talking with us live during Fox 10 News at 9 and suddenly was overcome by the pepper balls that had been deployed by Mobile police against some of those protesters that had been throwing bottles of water at police. Eventually they moved in. They created a large presence among the protesters, and those protesters started to disperse. There was some activity in the parking lot there, but most of the protesters dispersed. And then we started getting reports of some of these people had fanned out across the city and may have been up to no good. We know that along the I-65 service road, the Walmart there, the Lowe's there, also Bel Air Boulevard on the east side of the mall, there were some reports of some type of activities going on and police fanning out to do their best to stop anyone from doing anything unlawful. And as Chief Batiste told us live on our air, he understands the anger, understands the frustration, and wants to talk with these people, wants to help these people. But he said there have been some outside agitators among these protesters, and he said we will not tolerate any violence or any civil unrest, because the message would be lost at that point, according to Chief Batiste. All right, our Tyler Fingert is to tell me, the people that talk in my ear, Kaylee is our producer tonight. Tell me where Tyler is right now, Kaylee. Okay, he is on the move in one of our storm tracker trucks. Tyler, tell us where you are right now, please.
Yeah, hey, Byron. We're actually back where I started my reporting this evening. We are at Airport and the I-65 area by that Babies R Us building where the peaceful protest started and then kind of grew out of control. The reason why we came back here, we heard that there may be, it may have been something happening over here, which is why we decided just to circle back. But they do have their command post. Let me see if I can zoom in. Since I am parked, I'm able to move our camera, which is, our controls are in the back of our vehicle here. Because of the coronavirus, we actually have to be in separate vehicles. But if I trying to pan down here, the tree is kind of blocking it, but just beyond that view you're looking at there, that's a command truck there for Mobile Police. Multiple units are in this area, just parked off to the side here. So I guess they're possibly waiting for orders to go somewhere else if they get reports of any more issues possibly happening. But again, this is the area it all started. Let me just pan to my left here. You'll see Airport Boulevard is right there, and you can actually see the debris that was left from when all of these folks were out here on the ground.
And
I'm
Tyler,
looking at a very tiny monitor here, so
I believe this is this is a strategic location for MPD, because they can jump right on Airport Boulevard east or westbound, or I-65 southbound, northbound. So it's a plausible area for them to keep their vehicles and to be on a loose standby.
Yeah, because Airport Boulevard, they can pretty much get far into West Mobile over towards those shops or restaurants or any of the businesses out over on Schillinger that people may have been trying to get out to, or to the Walmart and the Lowe's over on the Beltline, or even on I-65 if they need to get up there. So this is probably the area where they are doing a lot of their command posts in this situation as they continue with this night. But I will say the officers here do seem to have their level, like their guards down, so that could possibly indicate that this rash of different things, of reports of different protesters doing different things, whether it was looting or anything else happening, that could indicate that things are quieting down for the night as we approach Monday morning, as we begin. Yeah, Monday morning. It's almost midnight. Yeah, midnight Monday morning, as and that hopefully could be a good sign that people are maybe going home finally, and that is probably their message still from Mobile Police, that just head home. You made your point when you were here peacefully, but now it's kind of getting out of hand, and I'm sure Chief Batiste was pretty much echoing that when he was talking with me probably about, 2 hours ago now?
Yes, 2 hours ago. It has been a very long day. It's been a very long day for everybody involved in this. And describe the scene when you were out there. You were actually live on the air when police fired those pepper balls into the crowd, some of whom had been throwing water bottles at them. And just describe the sensation that you felt when you got a whiff of those pepper balls.
Yeah, and I just want to say this because it goes without saying for us, I did not want to be close to the scene if I didn't have to be. I was, for the longest time when I was broadcasting on Facebook Live, I was in my vehicle about 50 to 100 yards away from where the protest was happening. We were just zooming in, trying to stay away because we didn't want to flare tempers there between police and the protesters.
Sure.
But then we were getting ready to go on the air at 9 o'clock, and we walked over, and I was telling my photographer, our chief photographer, Randy Lowe, that I don't think anything's going to happen. They've been all peaceful, everything's been fine. And then very quickly, everything just changed when that arrest happened of a person who police say was driving erratically or was not following the rules of the road. We're not exactly sure exactly what caused them to want to pull that guy over and cite him, but they ended up arresting that person. And that just set off a very quick succession of events that then resulted in that pepper balls being deployed, scattering everyone, which then got people to leave here and then try to go to other parts of the city and either protest or do other acts that Mobile police were, I guess, viewing as causing a criminal nuisance or something along those lines. So honestly, was not expecting anything to happen when we were going on the air at 9 o'clock, but then tempers started flaring and things just really did get out of control very quickly. And then we thought we were still far enough away when we were on live TV when all of a sudden that wind just blew the pepper balls. And as soon as you felt it, you knew it was something because you could feel it in your lungs and you could feel it in your eyes, or as the wind was pushing it all that way. And luckily, we weren't any closer because that would have been, I guess, painful, I guess, for the right way to say it, because for a long time you could feel it in your lungs, and it's a situation we did not want to be close to that for that reason, but also because we wanted to give the protesters their space, because we can still do our jobs. I can still do my job a little bit further away by staying 50, 100 yards away and using our zoom on our camera to be able to tell their story, because you can hear their chanting, you can see their signs, and it's similar messages they've been promoting all day. But then when the kind of just took a turn with people deciding that they were going to start throwing water bottles after that arrest happened, it kind of just started getting out of control very quickly. And from the time period when that arrest happened, because I went on live TV with you guys right off the top of the 9 o'clock, I then tossed to my colleague Michael Warwick in downtown Mobile, and then he tossed back to me, and right as he was tossing back to me, so it was probably about 9:05, 9:06, maybe a little earlier, when that first pepper ball was deployed. So it was less than 10 minutes from the time that arrest happened to the time that first pepper ball was deployed. So it was a very quick time period that everything changed here. The atmosphere, the protests quickly just going out of control, Byron.
I tell you what, Tyler, what we want to do is I'm seeing officers relaxing by their units right now, but what I'd like to do is the interview that you did with Chief Batiste right there in that parking lot. Let's go back to that interview and listen to what the police chief of Mobile had to say to not only the citizens of Mobile, but also the protesters. And he also referred to, I'm sorry, was it earlier in the day? Okay. Well, let's roll that tape and let's hear what Chief Batiste had to say.
And say this: if my officers violate policy, if they break the law, then yes, I will hold them accountable. Again, I don't know if you've paid attention to the media in the last month, but we've had officers arrested. That's because we did our job. We did our investigation, and we submitted that paperwork to the district attorney's office, and they've taken the approach to address that. As it relates to what are we going to do in relationship to trying to make sure that people know that they're being heard, just like what I'm doing right now. I'm sitting here, I'm listening to you. You're listening to me. And because we're listening to one another, we're having open dialogue. You understand? But too often times we talk at each other and not to each other. Correct. And so until we're able to sit across the table, me and you, or whoever else here that may be leading a group is willing to sit across the table and have open dialogue, we're not going to have it. I have consistently, and it started with my predecessor, have consistently tried to create pathways and avenues for us to have dialogue with young people in this community and older people in this community. And the goal is this: when you get invited to the table, you have to come. You can't wait till there's a crisis and then we're having dialogue. Dialogue should be created before there's a crisis, so that when the crisis arises, you'll already have the confidence that I'm gonna do what I should do. Remedial training. We actually go back and we retrain. We go back, and also, anytime we have this, we always go back and look at our policy to make sure that it's not a policy violation versus just a bad act. So you want to always make sure your policies are current. You want to also want to make sure that your policy or what's best practices at the time. So in every case where we have a complaint of officer misconduct, we look at the misconduct. We also investigate the policy to make sure that the policy and procedure is not out of line with what our practices happen to be out in the field. And of course, if there's a practice issue in the field, then we move to correct the practice action in the field. If it is a policy failure, then we move to correct the policy so that we have it. And we take the appropriate administrative action as well as criminal action if we believe.
All right, Chief Lawrence Batiste from earlier today in that extraordinary video that we had live here on Fox 10 News, actually having dialogue with people at Mardi Gras Park, a small group of people at Mardi Gras Park. They were firing questions at him, questions such as, what do you do about bad cops on your force? And he answered that question about, you know, we're gonna work with the community, we're going to work with the officers, we're going to retrain if possible. But he said that, you know, that the Mobile Police Department is doing everything it can to make sure it has the best officers on the street, but also asking people to come and talk with him and have dialogue so that, as he said, that it's too late. Once everything breaks open, it's too late then. He wants to make sure that the dialogue is such that they will know what the problem is before it even starts. So Chief Batiste taking the time during or right after the incident there on Water Street to have dialogue with some people that had specific questions about what was going on in Mobile and how the chief wanted to make sure that his force was doing everything it can to protect and to serve everybody in the community. So like I said, just extraordinary video of those exchanges that the chief had. And then of course later as Tyler is we're looking on here at the officers there in that staging area in the parking lot right off of westbound on-ramp onto westbound Airport Boulevard off I-65. Tyler had another incredible interview with Chief Batiste where he just laid it on the line and said that, you know, we want to hear what you have to say. We understand you're hurting. We understand there's pain. But once there is lawlessness, once there is breaking of the law, that we are going to respond. So Chief Batiste drawing a line in the sand to some of those. And he did talk about, Tyler, if you'll remember, he did talk about outside agitators. And I'm assuming, and having talked with people close to law enforcement, all areas here in Mobile County, that they were aware that there possibly could be outside agitators that were coming into Mobile. So apparently he addressed that as well. Tyler, you still there with us? Okay.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm so sorry. I am here. I did not. My earpiece was breaking up. You'll have to repeat that question. I'm so sorry.
I was just talking about the very solid interview you did with Chief Batiste, where he just pretty much laid it on the line that the message would be lost if there was continuing violence, and he also alluded to the fact that there were agitators that he believes came from outside Mobile.
Oh.
So.
Yeah, and that was crystal clear in the message during that interview about 2 hours ago, and also that interview that you guys were just playing a couple minutes ago, that if the message will get lost in these situations where if you go beyond what you're asking for in terms of if you're demanding that the officer in Minneapolis be charged, Yeah, but if you start looting, that kind of gets lost.
Sure.
Is basically what the chief was saying, and it does. And it's just a situation where they don't really want it to get to that point because, I mean, the chief of police here did say before all of these protests were starting in Mobile that what happened up in Minneapolis was not acceptable. And he was on the side of pretty much what all the protesters were saying. So for this to be happening here in the city of Mobile, it's probably disheartening for him as a police chief seeing this because he is on their side, but he's not on the side of law breaking.
Well,
because at the end of the day, he needs to hold up the law.
Right.
Here.
And as we wrap things up with you, Tyler, remember, he is a Mobilian. He went to high school at BC Rain High School. He played football over there. I know that Chief Batiste is hurting tonight, as are many, many people all across our city and our community. But it's a new day. It's 12:07, almost 12:08. It is Monday, June 1st, a new month. So now, what happens next? Tyler Fingert, live in West Mobile. Thanks so much. And thank you for joining us as well, live and also online and on our social media. This has been a very eventful day in the history of Mobile, Alabama. And hopefully, we will continue to move forward from this point. I'm Byron Day.